Ooh, good.
All right. Welcome to another episode of the Franchise Academy. My name is Tom Scarda. I am here with one of my best and oldest friends in franchising, Erik Van Horn. If you have not listened to Erik's podcasts and the many Facebook groups, I mean, on and on, we know each other for, I don't know how many years, a good 10 years, if not longer. Both originating in Franchoice, a franchise consulting company out of Minneapolis. And Erik has gone on to create some great things. So the cool thing about Erik, and the reason I'm bringing Erik on, is because he knows franchising from every single facet you could think of, right? He's been a franchise consultant like me. He has owned and operated franchises. He has started franchises. He has sold franchises for, I don't know, 8 figures. I mean, like, just done some great stuff. If you want to know about franchising, make sure you check out Franchise Secrets, one of the best podcasts, not only in franchising, but in business franchising in the world. Erik, welcome. Thank you for being on the Franchise Academy.
Dude, Tom, so good to be here. Mine's like second to your podcast, the Franchise Academy. So like I'll take second place.
No, we're rocking it, man. We're just changing lives one franchise at a time, man.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah, we're having a good time. Franchising is up, right? So the economy is weird. The job market is, everything is weird, but franchising still holds tight and just doing great things. What's your perspective, kind of nationally franchising? What do you think's going on?
Dude, when you said it's like weird. You're right about all that. It made me think like, man, are we in COVID again? Is it as weird as COVID? That was a strange time. It turned out to be a great time in franchise. And there's some scary times when it first started. And then like there were some hits that people took, and there were some dreams that came true for a lot of people out of that. So kind of where we sit today, got war in the Middle East, we've got inflation, banks aren't lending as easily as they were before. People are, can't get equity in their access to equity in their houses as inexpensively as they did before. And it might be the new normal. Right. But yeah, there's fear out there for sure. And then there's the things that we can control. And that's really kind of what I focus on with our brands and my life, and like, what can we control and what do we get laser focused on with that? Not meaning blindly doing that, not blind to what's happening in the economy and whatnot, but it's like, this is all happening. Let's get educated, but let's not focus on it. And let's prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
Yeah. Love that. I remember back in 2008, when the whole world started falling apart, somebody said to me, I choose to not participate. And my gut to that was like, that's just stupid. How could you not participate? It's happening. Then I realized, wait a second, you don't have to. I mean, you know what's going on or whatever, but if you don't have to eat it, drink it, sleep it, and, buy the t-shirt, you could do what you need to do for yourself and for your family. And I think that's the most important thing. And it, what I've been finding out, and I've been doing this franchise consulting role for 18 years, and I had an epiphany last week. I was sharing it with some of our friends in Franchoice that I was like, the people that we deal with, it's like dealing with a drug addict. It's like we're running a rehab center, and their addiction is a paycheck. And I'm like, and like, if you approach it from that perspective, it's like, okay, what has this paycheck been doing for you? How, and the reason you have this paycheck is because your mother told you to go get a job, even if you hated it, and so you talk a lot about trading time for money and how to get away from that. So elaborate on that. What do you mean by that?
Well, you're always, like, I guess we're just programmed to trade time for money. Like, we are putting in our time, whatever it is, and there's a dollar amount associated with that. Even in the entrepreneurial world, people start to look at their the value of their time per hour. They're making $1 million a year. They're like, ooh, my time's worth a lot now. It's worth more than what I pay my attorneys. And there's good things to look about when you're trading time for money. But I stopped doing that quite a while ago. And I value my time. I kind of look at what my time's worth, but that's like where I'm putting my value. Today I have at 3:00 on the calendar date with my daughter. And we're going to go to a coffee shop and play games and go out to dinner and then go for a walk. And I know it's costing me thousands of dollars an hour to do that with her, but that's an investment of thousands of dollars into her. And so I look at that and I'm like, it's very valuable. I want to invest that time into her. So I think about everything that I do, Tom, is about investing that time. Even in my masterminds, I have a mastermind for franchisors. And I was charging $2,000 a month for them to be a part of that. And I realized, oh, some of these brands became portfolio brands of mine over at Front Street. And I'm like, is that value in that mastermind really the $2,000 a month that they're paying me for 2 hours of my time a month? That's a good return on my time. But I thought, you know what? The bigger value is the brands that we are attracting over at Front Street. So I'm going to lower that price to $500 and have more brands in there. Tell the people to stop paying $2,000, which I did. I said, you're now paying $500, and more brands are coming in at $500 a month because I can help more people at that price. Because if you're a franchisor and you can't afford $500 a month, you shouldn't be a franchisor. And the value that they're getting way exceeds $2,000 a month, and they're getting it at $500. And we have an incubator of franchise brands, and that's the real value. And that can be exponential. You know, I don't know what brands are coming in there and how many will become portfolio brands of ours, but that's exponential. So when I think about trading time for money, I think about making decisions like that, where I am getting like an exponential value on my time.
Yep. Well said. And I want to talk about Front Street in a second, but I just want to finish out this topic of time and money. So there's so much to say about it. And I like to kind of share with folks, you know, when I was growing up, you know, my dad was a police officer in New York. We didn't have a lot of money, but my mom's side of the family had a home heating oil business, and they had money, but they had no time. So my uncles would always be late and sometimes miss Christmas and their kids' birthdays and like all this kind of stuff. And my dad, you know, we would complain, right? I have two younger brothers, and we would say, Dad, why do we have like the hand-me-down bicycle? Why do we have like the hand-me-down coats and boots? And he said, listen, you could have time or you could have money, but you can't have both. So I thought that was the gospel because my father said it. But I realized, right, as I got into franchising, you can have time and money because you have a business built on systems. That's what makes the difference. And then another mentor of mine said, you know what? They say that time is the most valuable commodity. We all agree on that. You can't get time back. But with the right business, franchise or not, if you have the right systems, you could buy time. And so it's kind of what you were just talking about. So what I mean by that, if you're making enough money and you hate doing XYZ, whatever it is, whether it's accounting in your business or going to the dry cleaner, you could now pay somebody to do that for you, buying time. So now you could spend time with your daughter, right? If that's the case. And so that's one thing I love, and what I've experienced myself as being a business owner is that I can actually buy time.
It's leverage. Franchising's leverage. It's business owners that have a successful business want to turn it into a franchise because now they can leverage other people, franchisees, helping them grow a larger enterprise of the franchisor. Franchisees that have never been in business before now have the easy button in most cases to leverage a business and leverage employees and leverage systems to help them have, you know, leverage that time and to buy time. So, you know, people that are working, they trade their time for a paycheck and bonuses or whatever, but there's a limit to it. And then if they go and start a business, buy a business, now you're leveraging all your employees. If you're in a franchise, it's employees and the systems and the processes and everything that they've done and the lessons that they've learned, the things that they have, the mistakes that they've made. You leverage the mistakes that other people have made when you get into a franchise, not just the franchisor, but all of the franchisees. So, I mean, that's one of the things that I love about franchising is learning from others' mistakes. And it's saved me so much. It saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars when I was in a salon suite business early on. And they're like, hey, you probably shouldn't be doing this one thing in the build out, because if you do this one thing, you don't get approval from the landlord, it'll probably cost you a lot of money down the road. And we checked, and that thing that they told us was true. And we're like, we need to get the landlord to switch this out and pay for it, and before we do all of the build out expense. And that saved us a headache and a ton of money. And that's the one that, we eventually sold the private equity when we had 12 locations of that particular franchise. And it was a nice 8-figure payday for us. And Tom, we started that out of the last recession. We were able to get a payday like that because we got great rent terms, lease terms on some of the early properties that we had. And we didn't know we were coming out of the recession when we were signing up these leases. But we, looking back, we were, and we wish the recession had lasted a little bit longer, because we would have been able to have more deals at greater lease rates. So anyway, it goes back to our earlier conversation. How do you take advantage of whatever kind of state that the economy is in or the world affairs are in? And that's how we definitely did that with that business.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you for that. And it's, a lot of times, people that are listening in, we're taught to go to school and get a job. We're not taught to buy a business. And so people get overwhelmed and they get scared, and they hear stories of people failing. And I think failure is probably one of the best things that can happen to somebody. So when, even like myself and you kind of know where I'm going with this, but, I failed in my second franchise. I lost almost my entire life savings on a stupid food franchise. And you've had your bouts with these kind of things too, right? So what do you tell somebody who's just scared and they don't want to make a move and they rather choose unhappiness and not, take a chance on themselves?
Yeah, there's a lot there. I think, well, let me say this. Fact that I failed, lost a lot of money by being in the wrong brand at the wrong time. Or, for a number of different reasons. And you've lost money in your second franchise. That absolutely made me a better franchise consultant. So like if I'm looking for a franchise consultant, which I do not do anymore, but if I was looking for one, and I think, where have you failed? Where have your, what have you learned the hard way? Like, I learned things the hard way when I failed as a franchisee that absolutely made me a better consultant. I wasn't so quick to recommend certain brands. I looked at things different. I did my own due diligence differently. I did so many things differently because I had lost money and it hurt. And so it made me a way better consultant. So I think you're a better consultant today because of your history of having a win and a failure. And so I do not mind failures at all. I don't like them. They never feel good. It hurts, but like what I've learned from that has made me way more money by the lessons that I've learned in future things that I've done. Way more money. And I've had a friend speaking about like he wasn't in a franchise, but he lost a ton of money in a business, almost bankrupted him. And then he was starting another business, and he went to this wealthy mentor of his, and who wanted to partner with him in another business. And the mentor said, hey, now that you know what it's like to actually fail and lose some money, he's like, not everything you touch turns to gold. Now I'm ready to be a partner with you. And there's a lot of smart people that don't run from failures. They embrace them and learn from them, and they are way wealthier because of it.
No question about it. Moreover, one of my favorite, I guess, phrases or axioms or whatever you want to call it. If you're going to be in a firefight and you want the person in a foxhole next to you, to have been in a firefight and not teaching at West Point. And so that's how I feel, right? I have the scars, been there. Back then I was crying about it, but now I literally look at it as a blessing. Having failed, it made me an expert. I wrote a book about it, and it just makes me feel bulletproof in a way, right? I earned my stripes, if you will. So that's just a great thing. Really good thing.
But if you're afraid of, if you're like thinking about buying a franchise and you're afraid of failure, you just need to, it doesn't mean you don't do it. It doesn't mean that you do it. There's things that you need to do and think through to understand if that's the right decision for you. Because, everybody's going to get scared. Everybody's going to fear failure. And that's why you just, like, there's somebody in the Facebook group today that says the SBA wants to take my house as collateral. And I know some of behind the scenes stuff of this particular person based on what they told me in private. And I'm thinking this person probably should not be buying this franchise because, Tom, it would bankrupt them. If they worst case scenario, which isn't even worst case scenario, but let's say they had to give up, like they lost that initial investment, the bank would take their house because they don't have enough equity. They would, if they didn't succeed at this 100% success, they would go bankrupt. And so it doesn't mean that they're not meant to be a business owner, or they shouldn't be a business owner. They shouldn't take a risk, but is that the right risk to take for them?
Right.
And is the timing right for them? And those are things that you just need somebody like yourself to really dive in to help them understand. Like $400,000 will bankrupt you if it doesn't work, but $150,000 or $200,000 that won't. And it's actually better for you because of, these different reasons. So that's why, it's important to have people like you to help you think through the different scenarios versus, just like, should I do it? Shouldn't I do it? I'm afraid I'm not going to do it, or I'm going to do it because I hate my job so much. I'm just going to take that risk. So there's so many things to think about versus just, should I do it or shouldn't I do it?
Right. And it really, it's not that simple. You're exactly right. I don't know if I could really expound on that anymore, but it's the thing is people come up against, the struggles between their ears more than anything else. And they also buy franchises because of silly reasons. And that's what gets them into trouble. Right. And so I push back on people all the time that are like, oh, I love this thing. I love this thing. And I'm like, wait a second. Do you realize you're going to be working nights and weekends because that's when people are going to use your service? And, let's think this through. Oh, but it's great. I'm like, well, hold it.
It's nice. It's nice to be able to have people to have the questions to ask yourself, to really ask yourself. And I'm amazed. I mean, there's no doubt about it. These franchise sales reps now, franchise salespeople, they can be really good and make anything sound amazing. And it might be amazing, and it might be amazing for them, but you need to go through kind of the process of making sure it's the right one for you and it's the right time and you're in the right market and you're in the right environment. There's so many ifs, but when it is, dude, it's magic. And I've seen, it's hard for me, even with this person, Tom, and I don't know them personally, but I see their financial situation. I know the questions that they're asking. I would advise them not to do it. But at the same time, I think, I don't know their work ethic, their determination. And some people just get in there and they're like, if it is to be, it's up to me, and they make it work. And I've seen people that are like that. They put it all out there on the line and rolled the dice and bet on themselves, and their lives are changed and their families' lives are changed for generations. So it's hard, man. It's really hard to, you just got to give people the right tools, the right questions to ask themselves, and help them with that due diligence in the ways that you can. And then it's a decision. And I've seen the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow for a lot of these people that I probably would have advised them not to do it, but they did it and it worked out well for them. So
Well,
those are always good stories.
those are great, and that's really having kind of the chutzpah to do it, right? When I was getting into, I was a subway worker in New York for 13 years before I got into franchising, and my disc profile and all those kind of things said, whatever you do not go into business and do not be a salesperson. And so I bought a business, right? And it was just, everybody thought I was nuts, but it enabled me to semi-retire at 41 years old. I didn't have the money to do it. I had to borrow the money. It was not a good scenario. But I said, you know what? If I have to sell smoothies, it was a smoothie concept. If I have to sell smoothies on the corner of Times Square in Manhattan, that's what I'm going to do. And that's what it takes, that tenacity.
Yep.
It doesn't really matter what the franchise is, right? So when you look at these franchises, you got, whether it's 10 franchise owners or 500 franchise owners, it's a bell curve. 20% are doing great, 20% are sucking wind, 60% are doing fine. What makes those 20% really kick butt? What are they doing? And the people that are sitting on the bench are like, oh, because they have pedigree, they have money, they had connections. I could never do what they did because I'm not that, and that's just poor self-talk.
Yep. It's human nature. Things aren't, if you're not doing as good as somebody else, it can't be your fault.
Right. Yes. And that's like the biggest thing. I think you have to become, what I tell people, become successful in your mind, read books, biographies of entrepreneurs, that kind of stuff, read that kind of stuff, and then become the person that you need to be in order to be successful. If you just are going from a job to a business and you think that you're just going to be successful, it's not going to happen. You got to change that mindset.
No. What do you think is the biggest thing that most people miss? Like what's the biggest thing that some advice that you and I could give somebody to make that right decision? Like, one of the things that I'm thinking off the top of my head is if it's not proven to be semi-absentee or absentee, like they're not actually out there doing it, then you need to get in there and work that as a job yourself. And I've seen failures. I don't know if you call it failure of the franchisee or the franchisor, but if it's not, they're not, the person has not, they're not able to put in the time and the effort and the energy themselves. And so they're not, like what you were just talking about, they are not the person that, that is going to put it out there on the line and make it a success no matter what. And the people that have that attitude of, I'm going to do whatever it takes, those are the ones that usually win. And it might be harder, it might be more of a challenge, it might, but they usually win with that right mindset. And they've got that tenacity.
That's a great, so, this topic is great. So thank you for bringing it up. And I think that there's an old American Indian proverb that says the eagle that chases two rabbits gets none. And so you have to think about, why are you doing this semi-absentee, meaning keep your job and have the business on the side? And it really comes down to fear. You're afraid it's not going to work. So if you're starting out from that mindset, chances are really good it's not going to work, even if you do put in the extra time.
Yeah.
So to your point, just about every franchise I know out there these days is like, oh yeah, you could do it and keep your job, no problem. And you say, well, how many people are doing it? Well, I think we got like one guy, maybe, maybe two guys, maybe. That's not, you got to be able to talk to 10, 20 people that are doing it. They've been doing it successfully. So that's a great thing. And the other thing is, I'm sorry, go ahead, finish.
No, don't forget your thought. The other thing with that, you might be the first or the second or the third one to do it semi-absentee, but just know what that looks like. Know the downside and protect yourself from the downside. Make sure if it doesn't go well, that it doesn't bankrupt you. And just know that that's the risk that you want to take. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just being fully educated. And that's why I appreciate you to be able to talk about this kind of stuff with the audience that you have, because it just lends so much credibility to you and who you are and how you help people. So like,
Well,
that's
thanks.
good on you, man. Talking like this, talking about this kind of stuff. This is
Well,
real stuff that a lot of people don't talk about.
I think it's important because it's, you know, right away people think there's failure and there is, but you got to understand why and how it happens. And I think, my rule of thumb for my candidates is never invest more than half of your net worth. That's, if you're like, especially if you're below $1 million net worth, do not invest more than half of that. So that's how you protect yourself.
That's exactly it. And in my group right now, that person is getting ready to invest 90% of their net worth.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's so just for full context, if you were consulting with that person, your rule of thumb, you would say, don't invest more than half of your net worth. And that rule would have ruled out this particular brand for them. And that's why I love it when people that are looking at buying a franchise talk to the right consultants like you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. But still on the same point, not to beat a dead horse, but I got to think about, so this person, man or woman, is looking at this business that's 90% of the net worth. So like, why? And it's my other rule is don't become infatuated with a particular brand. It may not be the right brand for so many reasons, let alone you can't afford it. But so there's that. I was working with a consultant when I was looking for my first franchise. This lady Carol, who you may know, used to be with Franchise, and I wanted, she told me about the process, and I was like, Carol, I don't need the process. I know what I want. It's Cold Stone Creamery ice cream, right? And she's like, oh yeah,
or Quiznos. You should have said Cold Stone or Quiznos. That's
right.
What you should have asked for.
That's right. The best of both worlds. So she was like, I don't want to, talk negatively about anything. But what she did say is, listen, your budget is like $100,000 and a Cold Stone is $350,000. So we're not going down that road. So
That's
it's
honest.
like, right. And so you have to be, because like maybe I could have scraped up 350 and then it would have imploded because I wouldn't have had enough money to keep the marketing going. Not to mention, it takes a really long time to break even in that business. It's so sexy. And man, that is not the way to go.
No, there's so many things that buyers don't think about until it's too late, or they have someone helping them think about things that they just don't know, questions that they don't know to ask themselves, things that you're just not aware of.
Yeah.
And maybe the first brand that they want is the right brand for them, but at least they go into it fully aware and able to do complete due diligence on a brand.
Right. And it's also, I want to be like, oh, this is new hot thing, and I'm going to be the first in this thing. And it's like, that may not be a great idea. For some people, it's the best idea, right? But you got to have the money and the time to educate people about the brand and what it is. And so that was part of the problem I had with my second franchise that failed, is that you had to explain what it was. It was a make and take meal assembly franchise. And it was like, people would come in, what is this? It's like, and so we're spending money on top of money trying to explain what it is. And it's really, you don't want to get involved with something that's sexy unless you have the money to spare.
Yep. So, and yeah, exactly. And so the Salon Suite was kind of like that because it was new for us and new at the time, but they had a lot of validation and there's multiple brands kind of doing the same thing. It made a lot of sense, the way that it was pitched, and it turned out to be an amazing thing, but it wasn't so brand new. It reminds me, I was having a conversation with somebody the other day that has a franchise. He's a franchisor. I thought it was an interesting brand. And I said, two things. How much money are you making? Not making any money. Well, red flag number one, franchisor not making money at their corporate location. So big red flag, but dive deeper. And it's this cool concept. Really neat, really good branding, all this stuff on the outside. It looks like, wow, this is really cool. I said, who are your competitors? We don't have any competitors. Well, actually we do. We have one that's online with $1 billion brand behind them. So I'm thinking an online brand with $1 billion behind it, and they're probably not making any money either. But there's different reasons why $1 billion brands do things besides just to make money. But she's like, nobody. And so that was just like, how do you educate the market on this thing that's so new? And she's been trying to do it for a number of years and not making any money and grossing only $200,000, grossing 200, making nothing, losing money, hoping her first franchisee will be the one that will come in and do an amazing job and make money so she can sell more franchises. And wow. We said, you shouldn't, like, we told her, the best thing that's happened to you and your brand is you do not have any franchisees right now. And she couldn't understand it. But just goes to show you, like, so many of these young brands, Tom, if they haven't been vetted out and there's nobody else has done really due diligence on it. She didn't have an item 19. She didn't have anything in her item 19 because she didn't want to. She wasn't proud of it. Of course she wasn't proud of it because she's losing money. But it's just there's a lot out there that people just need to be aware of. And that's where, I know before brands even get to you, there's been a ton of vetting on a brand done before it even gets in front of you.
Right. But you make a point that I just have to follow up on because I think it's brilliant. The fact of the matter is there's no laws or rules or regulations that say who could franchise a business. You could franchise anything under the sun. Right. You hire a franchise attorney, they do your docs, you submit to the Federal Trade Commission. Federal Trade Commission only cares that you're not money laundering or a terrorist organization or something like that. They don't care if you make money. They don't care if you support your franchise owners. So just because it's a franchise doesn't mean that it's a good business model. Some people think that that's true. Oh, if they're a franchise, they got to be making money. And that is not true at all. So it is really buyer beware. And if you're not talking to a good enough coach that would kind of educate you about it, you could get into, hot water really, really fast. And, with our make and take thing that we had, where you're making meals at our location and taking them home, we're doing that in 2006. It would have been great during COVID. So we're way ahead of our time. But people were trying to change their habits to the way they would make a meal, and breaking people's habits is really tough. You need a lot of time and you need a lot of money. And when you think about the big kind of granddaddies of franchising, the brands, right? McDonald's, probably, I would call that the granddaddy, right? McDonald's did not invent hamburgers, right? They invented a way to roll it out. Planet Fitness did not invent going to the gym. You know what I mean? So you got to find something where you could do data research and you could look at the entire market. And people get scared by competition, which I get that because you're not in business. But once you're in business, you realize, well, I need that competition in order to know that there is a market for this. If like this lady you're talking about has this franchise with no competition, well, how do you know anybody's going to use this thing? And apparently nobody is, because she's not making money.
Exactly. Oh, it's so hard too, because we are giving legit good advice. But then she gets advice from somebody that helped her, she spent $30,000 or $50,000 or $100,000 to have somebody say, yeah, we can turn you into a franchise and you have the best idea in the world because they're making money on it right away. I'm actually going to be doing a podcast coming up just on that. What are the non-negotiables to start for us to get involved with a brand? Like, what do we want to see? Like, what should a brand that wants to franchise, what should the non-negotiables be? So I'm going to be doing a podcast on that. And just like, you have to be making money. Like, that rule number one, you have to make money. If you don't have something that's making money, you should not be franchising. You should focus on making that business making money. And then that's just the basic of the basics. That's a non-negotiable. But there's a number of non-negotiables that you think would be true, but they're not, because what you just said, there's no rule that says you have to make money as at the corporate locations for a franchisor. All you have to do is pay someone $30,000 to $50,000 and you can magically become a franchisor.
Right? Scary stuff. So before we tie this up, just tell us a little bit more about Front Street Partners and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, over at Front Street Equity Partners, we have brands that we work with. We help them from outsourced franchise sales to helping them increase enterprise value, which means basically helping them become very valuable in a short period of time. Like, we want to take a brand that's worth a little bit of money today and help them become worth a lot of money in 3 to 5 years. And we want to do that by being aligned with that brand. We just don't want to sell a bunch of franchises for that brand. There's groups out there that do that, and there's groups that do an amazing job at that. We want to just have a little bit more alignment where we are helping sell franchises for the brand, but we also participate along the way, meaning make a little bit of money on the way as we meet certain benchmarks. And then when they end up selling to private equity or whoever they sell to, we'll make a little bit of money at that point too. So in other words, we are with that brand from day one, not taking any retainers, not taking any kickbacks from any vendors or anything like that. We're just there to help them find the right franchisees, help those franchisees buy the brand, and then help that brand become laser focused on helping franchisees become successful. And then once they're successful, the franchisee is worth more money, and then there's a good payday for everybody. So that's at the end of the day what we do at Front Street. We do that through FranDev, outsourced franchise development, and what we call strategic advisory. And and it's a lot of fun, man. It's a lot of fun.
That's cool. That is like full circle franchising. And the partners that you have, it's hundreds of years of experience. I know all of them, and everybody is just so dedicated to the franchise model. It's just what you guys are doing is quite incredible. And there's so much more to talk about. We need like about 100 hours to cover. I got so many more questions.
YouTube will cut us off at over 100 hours, so we better stop. No, it's fun, man. We were even before we even went live, we were talking. I was thinking, man, we should have recorded that. We're just having some good conversation. And it's just fun talking with friends like you, friends that are amazing at what they do, the craft, helping people buy franchises, investigate franchises, look at them, just the content that you put out. You're one of the best. You've been one of the best for a long time. And I just love having these conversations with friends like you. It's like the best part of my day, besides playing some pickleball.
Little pickleball.
Yeah.
Time with the girls.
Time with the girls, dates, spending time with the family. We're gonna go see U2 later this week in Vegas. When the temperature drops to 15 degrees, we got to go to some warmer weather.
Right, they're playing in the Sphere. Is that right?
Yeah. I should be pretty cool.
I've seen a lot of bands. I've never seen U2 live ever, so I got to do that.
You got to change that.
I got to change that. I mean, and the Sphere is the place to change it.
I've heard it's awesome. I'll let you know.
Yeah, please do. I would like to hear about that. I'll probably see some pictures on Instagram or Facebook or something. For sure. Well, cool, man. Like I said, I got so many more questions. Maybe we'll do another one someday soon. But I just want to thank you for your time here today, Erik. I mean, you're the best. You are the franchise guru. You have it all, every aspect of it. Quickly do a quick rundown of what people can find out more about you and listen to you more.
Franchise Secrets is my podcast. It's Google Franchise Secrets. From there, you can hop into a Facebook group. I got a cool Facebook group. Go to franchisesecretsgroup.com. And it's just a really good community there for franchisees, ZORs, and buyers. Scalable franchise is kind of the place to find everything that I do. But yeah, that's it, man. That's it. Cool. Easy. Franchise Secrets.
Franchise Secrets. Love it. Well, thank you, Erik. We will see you soon at a franchise conference, I'm sure. But it's great having you on the show. This has been an honor, man. So stay safe and have a good time.
I feel the same, Tom. Yeah, well, I'll see you next time. We'll have to try to have even more sushi than we had the time before, because we had a ton of it last time we were together.
We had about a half an ocean of sushi, and a lot of sake. That was really good sake too.
It was. It makes for a good evening. So thanks again, my friend.
Great people. Thank you. God bless you. We'll see you soon.